page Zion, or is Gimel. That's the paragraph that begins on page Zion. However, okay, we have to go back and read the last paragraph before the Kitzur, so that we understand the connection to where we're going. So prior to that, we explained that the koiches are mislabish in the Evorim, truly mislabish. They're not just hovering, but they're actually correlating to the Evorim. And as a result, what comes out of the koyach, what functions of the koyach in the Ever, is something which is akin to the nature of that particular Ever. And within that itself, it also depends on how well refined that Ever is in a particular situation, and that's how the koyach will function. And now, in that little paragraph before the Kitzur, it says, "V'hagam, although shehakoiches v'hayevorim einam be'erach klal ze lo zeh," although the koiches and the yevorim are totally in non-proximity to one another. Shehakoiches ruchnim heim, for the koiches are ruchniyim, v'hayevorim gashmiyim, and the yevorim are gashmiyim. Sometimes we'll get into this distinction, but it's clear to everyone that Ruchnius and Gashmius are literally not only in different worlds, in different realities. So therefore, how do they correlate and mislabish? The question here is not only the fact that they correlate, because the principle of the neshama in the guf is altogether a mafli las. It's a pele eliki. But the fact that they are affected by they actually correlate, and the koiches function reveal themselves, recognizing the nature of that particular aver. That is really an oddity. How do the koiches recognize the gashmius? Nevertheless, mikomikim still mi'achesh and mislabshim boher, being that they are mislabish, that the koiches are mislabish in the evorim. And the reason that mislabish, as we're going to see later, and the intermix of the various natures that go into making kelim are affecting also that this is how the intermix of the koiches will be. Therefore, it is imperative, it must come to a conclusion to say that in the hagshoma, in the physicality of the natural physicality of the world, of the evorim, there exists, it could be identified, meyein v'dugma teva mahus el ruchnish nefesh. Meyein, something akin, something of similarity, v'dugma, something that will be representative of the teva mahus el haruchnish nefesh, the nature of the mahus, of the actual present, or oil ruchni the nefesh, or the ruchni aura of the nefesh. Shadidei, where as a result of this similarity, hem kelim muchonim lakabil bohem tzuras hanefesh, they are kelim ready to accept the tzuras hanefesh, the nature of the nefesh, the tzura, the personality of the nefesh. As an example, the hirus ho'ayin, the brightness and the translucity of the eye, keili li'oyer hori'iyah, is a keili for the oyer of the ear, for the light of sight. Ukmoi, as for example, kmol dover mulutosh mekabel oyer, everything that is perfectly well shined, makabel oil, accepts light.
everything that I didn't touch.
that is polished. Smooth and polished, that's melutosh. We spoke many times the unique nature, unique quality of oil. Pardon me. We have oil everywhere. The eye cannot but help to see, and yet the hand doesn't even know that it's light. Not only the hand doesn't know it's light, even the more sensitive part of the body, the forehead, the cheek, that which contains the eye, has no sensitivity to light. Because the principle of oil is that it is entirely self-effacing, meaning it's not presenting itself. It simply reveals the truth that there is. And the reason it's revealing the truth that it is because it's completely self-effacing. It does not present any of its own presence, and as a result of that, and this is its ability to reveal the actual truth that there is. As we always point out, the phenomenal difference between identifying things by touch and identifying things by sight. And one clear union that we always mention: by touch, you touch you know the physical makeup that you're touching. It makes absolutely difference when you're touching a table, a chair, a floor, a roof. It makes no difference at all. In sight, you identify so to speak, the design of what you are seeing. On the contrary, you're not even relating to material of which it is made. You're primarily relating to significance. And not only the significance, as we always point out, when you look at the table, it's not the table that you're looking at. You're looking at the entire environment in which the table represents. A table in the street and a table in a home, you're seeing different things. In the home, as a result of the table, you see a living home. In the street, you see a physical structure. And that's not the real meaning of sight, to see a physical structure. Sight is a neshama element. And the neshama does not relate to a physical structure. It relates to something that has a neshama quality, a neshama value. This is melutosh. Something that is completely smooth, completely clear, does not pose any kind of obstruction by the virtue of the fact that it's a physical entity. You can't even tell it's physical. It's so smooth. Like you pointed out many times, you take a piece of plastic that is extremely smooth. It does not represent any physicality, but touch. Let's go back to touch. How, in fact, do we feel what we touch? First thing is, we move our hand, and the hand is stopped, cannot move any further. There's an actual action, a counteraction to your movement. has to be something rough, something that affects your movement, in order for you to feel the physicality of it. The same thing, even if you just swipe across the table, what you feel is the different designs and different harshness, roughness of the table. If not for that, you wouldn't feel it. This is the way it is with Gashmis. We spoke one time that in Gashmis there's also this smooth surface and all that. But sight, you don't see because it's obstructed. Because there is something that prevents the smooth sight. On the contrary, sight you see exclusively because of its direct purity. This is why sight points you to the spiritual aspect that you're looking at, not the physical. Because that's what a light relates to. So the Gashmis, even the Gashmis we see that called Dovim Lutosh, he accepts light. Because light is non-active, so to speak, and is extremely delicate. In order to be very sensed, that delicacy, in order to be sensed, it has to be, the koilim, he mentioned, the sense has to be very, very fine. Melutosh, perfectly polished, smooth. That's where light is recognized, is accepted.
What is the general point?
Because that's the message of light. That's exactly what light is.
Hello?
Yeah.
What is the general point that's being made with this specific example? About the question of Orim?
Okay. So far in this paragraph, we are explaining that the reason that the koiches are mislavish in the Evorim is due to their natural affinity.
Natural affinity of that koich with that Aver.
Well, in general, the koiches and the Evorim, and that koich with that Aver. In general, the fact that the nefesh is mislavish in the guf ha'odom is because the guf ha'odom is muchon, has a certain recognition. The nefesh can recognize that this guf is something that it can relate to. We can put it in rough terms, and then each one will have to develop. The difference between guf ha'odom and lahadl guf ha'balchai is the guf ha'odom is so structured that the head is in a place all by itself. There's nothing in the same proximity where the head is. It's on top of everything. And then, the first thing after that, come the hands, which represents midas. And then after that, lower than that, come the feet, which represents essentially koyach ha'maisa. That structure, the nefesh can relate to. Because the nefesh knows only of truth in the purest sense, in godly truth, which is first and foremost recognized in intellect. A Balchai, by the very structure of his body, repels the nefesh ha'odom. So I don't have to first realize this is clear. So there is, so to speak, a similarity And this similarity is further identified on a lower level, on a more specific level, that the Evorim have a certain, each Evor has a certain refinement, a certain form, and a certain refinement. The brain is the most sensitive organ in the human body. It is so sensitive that it is sensitive to intellect, to seichel. The heart is also very sensitive, but the heart gets heated up. Midas have a certain reaction, a certain impulse. The brain doesn't have anything. Seichel doesn't have anything. Seichel just says, this is what the truth is. To be able to accept that type of a message, you have to have a keir that is akin to that sensitivity. And this is what the brain is. In other words, what we are discussing now is the phenomenon that the koiches and the slavish in the and we are explaining that this Islapshus is total in the sense that the koiches function not as an independent koyach, except it's in this Eber, but it's affected by the nature of this particular Eber and the makeup of this particular Eber in a particular body, in a particular person. The koyach ruchni is affected by it. So let's finish the last line on that short paragraph. Similarly, the very material of the moyach, that the moyach is made up of. The moist element, the sense, the finer, the softness in it, v'hadakus, and the refinement. Dakus, the word dak means thin, literally. Now, what is thinness? Let's develop that a little bit so we'll understand the implication over here. Physically speaking, a physical entity has to have three dimensions. It has to have width and length, and it has to have height or thickness. If it doesn't have thickness, it doesn't exist. Then there is what's called dakus, very thin. Something that, if it is thin to the extreme, it can't exist. Because it only has two dimensions, it has only three dimensions. When we say dakus, we mean dakus to the extreme.
Which dimensions doesn't it have? Just
What on?
which dimensions doesn't it have?
The thickness, the height. When we are saying that there's the dakus in the moyach, we mean dakus to the extreme, to the point where it doesn't, and I said it's self-effacing. It accepts the seichel without interference with it. Tell me what you're talking about. Forget it. Just listen to what I'm saying. That's the nature of the brain. The more refined it is, the more purely it accepts the seichel. Therefore, since that the chomer by nature, the chomer hamoyach by nature, has this lachluchis and dakus, this is a conceptual dakus. The brain has a real presence, a physical presence, but a conceptual dakus because of its enormous sensitivity. Yesh boy is a dugma. Therefore, in the moyach there is some modulation, some similarity, representation, mitava oil hasech, of the nature of the hasech. Okay. We should be.
It doesn't say cycle. Does the brain relate only to the oil cycle, not to the
Oil hasech.
Not cycle.
The first thing in Seichel is the Oyer HaSeichel. And after that, you can create Seichel. In simple terms, it means first you have to have the Chochmah, then you can bring it out to Bina. If you don't have the Chochmah, then the Bina has no significance. This is why so Chochmah and Bina, this is Tlein the Mispashin. These are two friends that don't ever separate. But Bina is in a different category than Chochmah. Bina has tangibility. He has proofs, has arguments. How the Bina compared to Chochmah, which is a direct recognition of the truth. And this is the important thing to always remember. The special quality of Bina is not in its tangibility. It is that it gets all its input. What does it try to understand? Not something that it experiences on its own. It tries to understand that's what the Chochmah tells it.
So Chochmah is called Oyer?
Oyer, Chochmah is Oyer. Chochmah has no Chochmah is a beetle, has no mitzias.
It's the Borek
So Chochmah is Oyer HaSeichel, or Oyer HaSeichel is even beyond Chochmah?
No, this is called Oyer HaSeichel. Chochmah is Seichel, but Chochmah is not Rotzen, it's not Oyer, it's not Nefesh, it's a Koyach HaSeichel. A Koyach HaSeichel at its pinnacle.
Usually when we speak about that, it's confusing. Usually when we speak about Oyer, it means there's a Etzem, there's a Oyer of the Etzem, there's a Seichel, there's a Oyer of the Seichel. Now we're saying that Seichel means
No,
Oyer.
Seichel is Oyer. This principle that Bina draws from Chochmah is of paramount importance. And this is something which eludes many of us. Let's take our kind of essential table. Short table. Oh, this is a table. Oh, yeah. Okay. So let's try and understand what it is. How do we go and try to understand this? What is the human approach to understanding this? Oh, how big is it? What makes it stand? What are its components? All of these things you don't find out from the message. This is a table. All of these things they can find out by touch. It takes up room. Okay, what of it takes up room? The board, the legs, and so on. You miss the whole point. If you say you want to understand the table, okay, what is its functionality? What is the meaning of the table? What does it mean to a human being to have a table? And that you delve in with Bina to understand what is its significance? What are the components? How can you break it out of components in terms of the significance of what table, not what its structure, physical structure is. This is where a very common error. Saying, okay, let's break it down in components. So then I know a table. You don't know anything about a table.
And the nimshal here, we got into just making this distinction and saying Chochmah into Bina because we're looking at the way that the moyach is a keli and says, tell me what you are saying to what is above it. It says that to Seichel. Is that the nimshal? No.
We said, I don't know exactly where you're coming from, so I don't know if I understand the question, but tell me if there is anything here. The moyach is a keli le'oyer haseichel. Oyer haseichel, I mean, explain to me oyer. Oyer is an intangible element. And the moyach is a keli, the oyer haseichel, where is the oyer haseichel in Bina? Oyer haseichel in Chochmah we understand. What is the oyer haseichel in Bina? Bina is already breaking down the components. That is an erroneous approach to Bina. Bina is not, okay, this is the table, okay, let me take it apart in its components, and structural components. You're not talking about the table.
Right. So the Moyach has this dakus and says.
The Moyach has the reality. The Moyach relates to the reality. The Nefesh says this is a table. That's Moyach. That's the Oyer Seichel. What is so significant of this table to the Nefesh? This is the Bino element. That means Bina is also bottled, but Bina is the Chochma is bottled to the Nefesh, and Bina is bottled to the Bina, to the Chochma. It already has some a teacher, so to speak. But that was Bina is. Bina is not okay. This is the table. Let me feel it. Let my hands tell me what the table is. That's not the table.
What is the keli for Bina?
The Moyach in the Moyach, both Chochma, Bina, and Das are all three are in Moyach. Different parts in the Moyach. All right. As I said, I'm sorry to skip the Kitzur, but maybe we'll get back to it. Just because I want to have the continuity and show how the next ois follows to what we discussed. So now we finish saying that the correlationship and the slapshus of the oir haseich, or perhaps the correct way to say the oir, that's called seich, which is oir hanefesh in the form of seich. And this is mislabesh in the moyach hagashmi. So we explained how does that happen? Because in the moyach hagashmi there is something which is akin to this oir seich. Omno. However, ikir hoyinyan bozeh, the most important inyan, the most important principle in this phenomenon of the fact that seichel is mislabesh in moyach, or koiches hanefesh bechlal mislabesh in the ivorim. This whole phenomenon, it's really a miraculous thing. The principle in this who it is lefi shehakoiches hein pnimiyim be'etzem. It is due to the fact that the koiches are in essence pnimiyim. As we started originally talking about koiches, first we talked about rotzen, and we pointed out rotzen is a koyach makifi. But the koiches are koiches pnimiyim. The principle of pnimiyim, really there's much to speak about it. But first, in contrast to what we spoke about before, koiches makifi, rotzen versus the koiches pnimi. What is the stark contrast between rotzen and the koiches pnimi? It's like this. Rotzen HaNefesh is not interested that the guf should agree with the rotzen. This is what I want. It's making a blanket statement. This is what I own, this is what my nefesh or this is what it is, and finished. And you would say, oh, it says take it or leave it. No, it's not. It overpowers the guf and it forces the guf to accept it. Because the nefesh is the boss, the nefesh is chayes of the guf. Pnimiyim means that, yeah, I want you to accept. I want to be where you are. Koyach Makifi stays, so to speak, in its original abode, in its original source, and says, "Here I am. This is what you have to accept." Koyach Pnimim, they deal with the keich. They engage the keich.
meaning to say it's done by force?
It's not by force.
Becomes part of it.
Huh?
It's to say like it becomes part of it.
It becomes part of it, and it seeks to find affinity. It seeks to find agreement. That's what Shechet Pnimi means. Let's take a very simple example. There's children and there's a teacher. And the teacher says to the children, okay, Kinderlach, come into class and sit down. Why should we sit down? Because I want you to sit down. I don't want to sit. You have to sit. That's okay. But then he says, Kinderlach, this is an aleph. I don't want to. Oh, this, I want you to understand, this is an aleph. It's an aleph for the past 3,000 years. Look what it looks like. It doesn't look like a Beis, it doesn't look like Gimel. This is the difference. That which he wants, sitting in the classroom, he doesn't want him to take it b'pnimis. Just sit. But once I talk to you and I teach you, I have to go down and see, okay, why don't you understand what an aleph is? The Rebbe, Friedrich Rebbe, describes his Dadlike teacher. An aleph, he said, this is like a Wasserträger. You know what a Wasserträger is? What is it called? A water pole.
Carrier.
A water carrier. It had to be a long pole, and had two pails on either side, and he carried on his shoulder. And somebody who was more agile, he would take two of these things. He says, see, an aleph looks like a Wasserträger. And the children were able, the Rebbe said, the children were able to relate in that form. And it was wonderful because when we walked on the street, we saw a Wasserträger, we immediately thought of an aleph. The Rebbe calls this Melamed, he was a Melamed Bar Poel. A Melamed that had an effect on the children. This is called Pnimiyim. You can't superimpose the knowledge of an aleph, no matter how hard you try. And even when the kid repeats aleph, 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 like a robot, he didn't learn the aleph. Doesn't mean anything. Okay. So the Ike principle in this is because the fish hakoiches and pnimim beyatzem, because the koiches are be'etzem. What does be'etzem mean? In their very essence, they are pnimim. In this example, which now used, I kind of jumped the gun just to give us a handle on it. This example does not speak of the koiches be'etzem being pnimim. It speaks of the fact that the teacher has the obligation to make sure that the children understand it. So the teacher has to engage the children on their level and show them what an aleph is. But in truth, the most important thing is that the koiches apnimi be'etzem. Be'etzem means how the koiches originate in the nefesh. The nefesh has an interest to bring out these koiches in such a way that it should be acceptable. And it should actually function within the kid. That's what Rebbe goes on to say. Pnimi be'etzem. What's meant be'etzem? Pnimi be'etzem. Haino, which means shaboyim behagbala min ha-nefesh. To start off, they come from the nefesh behagbala in a definitive manner. And they come behagbala from the nefesh to such an extent, add to the extent shehem be'erech li'islamis b'kelim, that they become be'erech, they in proximity, which means that they are in there's a similarity. You can define them in magnetism to such an extent that they can be mislabish in kelim. Over here, the Rebbe does not specify which kind of kelim. In be'erech li'islabish b'kelim. The implication in this is that li'islabish b'kelim, by virtue of the fact, the very principle that this is mislabish in a keli already speaks of the hagbala of the sinyan rather than its infinity. It means mislabish a keli.
It speaks of what?
The hagbala. We'll go step by step in this. We mentioned last week, I think, that if you have water in a cup, so water in a cup is a fitting relationship. The cup is a keli for the water. If you have pebbles in the cup, it stays in the cup also, and you can carry the cup and thereby carry the pebbles. But it's not a relationship of keli. Why not? It's in the keli. The answer is the pebbles are not in the keli. Pebbles remain what they are. They still retain their own form. They don't assume the form of the keli at all. They retain their original form. Water in a cup. The nature of water essentially is that it flows limitlessly. You have a basin, you have a lake, you have a river, you have the ocean. It's all the same water. Then you put it in the cup. That's when you are identifying a hagbola in the water. In order to fit into a keli, you have to be hagbola. The keli can be huge. Any keli identifies the principle that this also can be nigbal. So the principle of, as I said, keches pnimim is that they come from the nefesh behagbola, which means there is an inherent nature in this koiches that they can assume a bahagbola.
As if to say, as they set out, they know, they have a sense of coming to a limited place.
Ad shehem be'erech li'islabish b'kelim. The pnimi's element is that they ultimately can be mislabish in kelim, and as a result of that, there is an inherent element that they can assume the inyan from Hagbola. Okay, I'll explain. You recall when we first learned, actually in the previous Hamshach, that in Atmos there is no oil. The whole Arichas discussion, where is oil come from in Atmos? There's no oil in Atmos. We explained, why not? The Shemesh has oil, internal to it. The Nefesh has oil, internal to it. Atmos does not have oil. So we explained. The Nefesh has oil because the Nefesh has a principal definition of what Nefesh is. It's Chai. Chai Be'atzim. Therefore, it has oil of Chais. The Shemesh is oil, is Mehiri Be'atzim. Therefore, it has in Etzim linear from oil. Atzmus does not have a definition of what it stands for. It's not even correct that it stands for everything. It doesn't stand for everything. Atma does not stand for anything. This is like I said before, that the ultimate extreme of Dakus is that it doesn't exist. As much as thin as you make something, it's still a thickness. Atma does not have any thickness at all. That's why there is no oil. There's nothing, no message to give out.
So, or in a way is like information.
What?
Or is information in a way, information.
Yeah, oil is a certain message, right? So the koiches apnimin be'etzem, which means they come by hagbala me'anefesh. Achein be'erches labish b'kelim. In other words, koiches from the nefesh is not just a message of nefesh. There is a certain specificity, a certain message in it. There is oil ha-seichel, oil ha-nefesh, oil ha-midas, and so forth, oil ha-chesed.
So this Hainu Shebayim Hagbala, take Koyach Riyah. You may think by the nefesh level it's infinite sight, but the point here is it's sight and not something else. And now it's Go'ifin Hagbala in that it can be limited sight that's Lefi the Ayin.
Okay, so once there is a definition, like we said, the Shemesh is infinite light, but it's light. Once there is a definition, that light can ultimately be taken into a keli, even into a small keli.
When you say Bagbula, in contrast to what? Let's say they would become Bagbula. How would it
Kochas Makifin. Kochas Makifin are not representing of any kind of a function in the nefesh. Kochas Makifin is nefesh itself.
So here would be Bagbula means a function.
Hagbala, the proper way to define the Hagbala is intentional, intent. Something that is done intentionally has some purpose, some aim, what you're trying to accomplish. That aim is Hagbala.
But Rotzen, Koyachas Makivim also a function. It's a Koyach.
The Rotzen does not come intentional. The Rotzen provides intent for everything that a nefesh does. The nefesh does not have to explain to itself, I want to live because of such and such. Rotzen lichlis is an essential iman. It's a Beis, as we spoke many times, it's a godly iman. It is representative, as we say all the time, of the motivation element. From that, to represent that on a functional level comes a seichel, which is intended, in a certain way. That's the Hagbola. There is a definitive intent. Like they say, a table represents a human being. There's a definitive message that it carries. That's the Hagbola.
Maybe because it has a beginning, and Otzen doesn't have a beginning.
What does it mean because it has a beginning?
Roots and Leches, it was always, and as the example, I want to know why is a cycle he sees where he's coming.
Why was it always?
But this is this essential, like it's Etzem. That's what he is.
But
It's Chai Etzem.
one second. Let's carry this through. That's what he is. But he is Mugbal. But he is Mugbal.
That he is something else. It's not the Rus.
So Rosh never has a beginning.
I'm not getting Shlomo's question. Can you just say the questions you're answering?
It's okay. And it's like a car makes a wrong turn, so you have to turn around. This is not the right direction. Like I said before, a rotzin hanefesh is an Ayin atzmi, and it is really a godly in it, and it is really in the person representing the Ayin of Motor Rishon. Motor Rishon means the reality itself, not because this is his etzem. His etzem will never create rotzin. The stupidity that they have come up with, that everything fights to continue to, what is it called?
To survive.
To survive. Where should get that from? Just because it exists, he wants to survive. There's a truth beyond survival, beyond existence, beyond world. This is where it all comes from. Chai is a nefesh, is a godly in it. I don't want to go there. This is something which we discussed many, many times. So Rotzen is not Mugbal, not because he has no beginning. It has a beginning. But because the beginning is without a beginning.
Beginning is what?
It's without a beginning. I think Baruch mentioned yesterday, that's something which you mention all the time, by the breathing function. The breathing function has no
Right.
beginning.
The breathing function?
Breathing function. I don't breathe because I need air. There is something forcing itself into me. If I would breathe because I need air, life would be miserable. Can you imagine? When we are hungry, we eat. Okay, it's okay. So you're hungry a little bit, so we're going to eat. Can you imagine that every time we take a breath, before that we feel, choking. That would be life. Life is something which is put into us. We live because we're made to live, not because we seek life. That's real life. Okay, let's go back to Koches Pnimim. The Koches Pnimim Biyatzem, which means that they come by Hagbol Me'anefesh Ad Shehem Be'erech Lihislabish B'Keit. They're Pnimim to the point that they're aiming to be Mislabish in Kelim, to accomplish a certain function, essentially. That's what Koches Pnimim is.
What is added by saying Pnimim Be'etzem? Seems like we would understand this by saying a kefes named Pnimim. Kefes are made to relate.
You weren't here when I started this, were you?
I
No.
I retract my
You
question.
No, don't do that, guys. I don't mind. Just because we pay attention to that. Pnimim Be'etzem is exactly that. They're not Pnimim functionally. They're Pnimim in their inception. The Nefesh produces Keches on a Pnimim level. In essence. They don't become Pnimim after they've established in the cave.
Well, but isn't it the point they couldn't be Mislavish in Kalim if they were not already Pnimim?
That's true.
So you tell me
That's
that
also true. The thing is that there are different kind of Islamshus in cave, as we have already done. It could be Islamic in cave.
by being Machriach the Keli.
But in the cave, it's not Islamic in cave. You take a cup and put it in the ocean. Does the cup have water in it?
Yes.
Does it have water of its own? It's part of the water of the ocean.
The ocean has the cup.
The ocean has the cup, right? Has the water been identified with the cup and measured? Not at all. Okay, like you said, the ocean has a cup. Hers means that they're measured by the cup. In the nefesh, in the original inception, is that this keches should be pnimiyim.
It's almost like they want to be measured by the cup.
That's right. That's what the point is. This is really an endless thing. As we go on, and we'll have many more details. All right, let's just continue.
One word pnimi means that it goes inside the kaila. That's why it's called pnimi.
Their intent is to affect something in a keli.
Yeah, but it becomes pnim. What means it becomes pnim? That it lays in a kaila. It's in a kaila. It's not outside of the kaila. It's in the kaila.
Right, but that's not when they become pnimi. They are pnimi in their be'etzem, in their inception.
That they should become pnimi in the kaila.
In the cave. This is really an amazing thing. Why would the nefesh produce keches pnimi? The nefesh has itself, first of all, it's chai be'etzem. Then it has ayin and rotz. It has everything. Why would it produce koiches pnimim to be mislabish in a keli? What's the answer?
That's his function. That's why the nefesh is here.
That's the shlichus. That's the divine shlichus. That is the etzem of the nefesh.
So that we're stressing, we say min hanefesh. Their koich is by magbala min hanefesh.
Yeah, that's why we call Pnimim B'Yatzim, because from the nefesh itself they come back both.
What is the Etzem Nefesh is that it has a shlitus? Is that what you said?
Yeah, nefesh. Certainly, the nefesh as it is in the goof is to be give chayes to the goof and then to give the goof all of its qualities in the form of seichel and midas.
I don't want to digress, but is it correct that the nefesh before it's mislavish and guf, there's already an aspect of er and kli? I mean, you have the er seichel of the nefesh and the kli seichel of the nefesh before it's mislavish and the kli amayach, right? So then it's already kind of ingrained in the fabric of the nefesh, this idea of er and kli. It's not something which is foreign to it before it's mislavish in the guf.
Right. But the kelim, the kli haseichel and kli hamayach, two different levels of kelim. It's true. Koiches pnimi, by definition, have an element of keli inherent in the oil. In Kabbalah's form said that kelim are his avos ha'oir. The avos ha'oir nasem ha'kelim. The avos ha'oir becomes more. The avos means thickened. When the avos, the oil comes down to a lower level, that creates a kelim. But that's that's a different kind of a kelim.
What I'm saying is that that's not at all what it's speaking about here. Pnimim be'etzem she'em ba'im b'hagbala min nefesh. From the nefesh already, they're in a state of hagbala. They come already to anthropomorphize.
The keifes that we are talking about are keifes that are mislavish in the group. This is keifes right now in this context. So we've explained how the keifes mislavish in the group, because there's an affinity between the moyach and the keifes. That and the shoulder that this is absolutely true, but that's not the real pointed answer. Why do they mislavish in the keifes? Because that is the nefesh definition of koiches. Koiches mean so that they can be mislavish in it. In kelim. We speak. When we speak, we say words. And these words are essentially part of the thought that we are expressing. So when we speak, we're not even paying attention to the words, not even to the structure of the sentence. We're paying attention to the message that we're trying to give. But this message is such a message that is a message pnimi, which means it has a presence, and we represent it in sentences, in words, and in letters, so that ultimately our message can also be written down, not only spoken, not only thought of, it can be written down in individual letters, and the whole message is there. This is the meaning of pnimi. This is the meaning of a pnimi.
Message point. The message point. The message point. The pnimi.
Yeah, the message. If the message is a pnimi, it will ultimately be be able to be expressed in sentences, in thought, in sentences, in words, and in letters.
This all we call kailim, the thought and the lessons.
That's right. These are all kelim.
Okay, Rotzen can never be captured in that way?
No.
No?
No.
So this is not the whole of Nefesh. This Oyer Panini.
I don't know what your question is, Baruch.
My question is, in other words, Rotzen is in a sense beyond Nefesh the way we're defining Nefesh now.
No, Rotzen is the Etzema Nefesh. All of these koiches function are revealed because of Rotzen.
Because of Rotzen.
It's like a makif question, but why does the nefesh, so this whole discussion, Slavs Bekalim, why does the nefesh want to do this in the first place? Why can't the nefesh just remain
We just discussed it. Because the Nefesh has a divine mission. To bring Chai the Guf. All right. We are starting this in, so that was sufficient for a good introduction of what follows, okay? Okay, we're going into parentheses. The aspect that comes from the koiches all the way to be mislabish in the Eivorim, this is the lowest aspect in the koiches. Shenikra Geshem Beruch, which is called the Geshem Sheberuch, the physicality in the Ruch. Let me just go through this parenthesis and we'll do justice tomorrow. However, because that the koiches are in essence pnimiyim, alkein, thus dakos hoivorim, hanikro ruchin shebegashmi, which is called ruchin of the gashmi. It becomes a keli to be able to contain and grasp the Geshem Sheberuch. And we said before, dakos or evorim. Dakos or evorim means dakos means that it is to the point where it's hardly identifiable as a presence. That's mean dako. Dakos shebevorim, this is the ruchni shebegashmi, is a keli to the gashmi sheberuch. And the whole thing that there is this combination. Dakos sheberuchni, dakos sheberuchni is mislabish, the gashmi sheberuchni is mislabish and the gashmi shebegashmi. The whole interaction, even though we are finding some kind of affinity and so on, ultimately it happens because the koiches are pnimiyim. And their pnimim, their aim is to be mislabish and kelim, and the real meaning of pnimim is that they find their fullest present, their fullest complement, their fullest, their greatest accomplishment, their greatest self-identity in kelim. That's my pnimim.
The greatest fulfillment, the greatest self-identity. Because koyach is missing more. They find fulfillment by being in
You look out on the sky, and you look in this safe.
Somebody is driving their car in the shear.
When is the koyach hariyah functional more? Looking at the safe or looking at the sky?
The sky.
The second.
All right, gentlemen, this is it for this morning. That is it.
Yeah.